What is going on, everybody? And in this video, we're providing a state of the market and stock picks for January 5th, 2023. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing as we do provide daily and weekly updates to get you prepared for the day and the week ahead in this glorious market. Now, day two of 2023, we are still playing a very, very tight range. But nonetheless, what was important today is something I was talking about coming into this week was there was a couple of different events that had weight. The FOMC meeting notes is one of them, as the last meeting that we have had kind of crushed all hopes for a lot of people expecting a pivot. Now, I myself was not expecting a pivot. I was seeing things could potentially get better, but again, that has been very rocky as far as things potentially getting better. 100% pivot just wasn't going to happen because of the fact that the Fed were announcing months in advance that they were going to hold rates. The whole plan they essentially talked about since probably last July was that once they get to a point to where they feel they're content with the rate increases, that they would stay at that particular rate for a prolonged period of time. And so, going into that last monetary policy, I believe it was on the 15th of December, just absolutely wrecked the market. The market is not what the market wanted to hear. The market thought we would have hit pivot. We got a 50-point basis move. Now we're going to pivot, and that's just not going to happen. We're going to continue to get more rate increases. It's essentially what the notes have discussed, in that they don't see any kind of actual pivot until 2024. So that puts us at a very interesting spot. Nothing really changes, but again, for some reason, the market is just in this state of awe that things are just going to come back in check, and understandably so to an extent, because of the fact that we have to understand in a market that's already bad, and it's going to get bad, a lot worse than what it is. That people will jump on any kind of hope, and hopium is extremely potent. We've seen it last year towards the back half in the rallies that have come from hopium. But today, Salesforce announced they're laying off 10% of their workforce. And you had Amazon at the close of bell, I think it was around the close of bell today, announced they're laying off 11,000 more employees. Now, given on the scale in which Amazon is, that's not a lot, but it's still a lot. That's a lot of people that are going back into the workforce, are going to unemployment. Again, they'll all have severance packages, I'm sure. So you're looking for another, 2 to 3 months before you see those numbers once it actually happens. Now, you've had a bunch of Tesla, Microsoft, and Google layoffs, Apple layoffs that are coming around the corner. So you're starting to going to see more and more and more and more layoffs coming. And this is why non-farms are going to have a lot more weight on this employment that we're seeing in the headline. That's one thing that's advertising in the headline, is all these layoffs, but you're not seeing the true numbers because the data don't show that. As long as a paycheck is being put out, they're considered employed. And then understand that those numbers are reported into the data that everybody reads and thinks that everything's okay, when in fact it's not. But we've talked about this, and understand that even though it is pretty shitty the way things go as far as the general public, you can't, as an administration, it doesn't matter what side you go for, whatever. I'm not trying to get political here, but it doesn't matter what side you go for. You have to steer the masses. You cannot induce fear into the masses because it's very chaotic and destructive, and you have no control over it. So to understand that, you have to manipulate reports that weed out all the really bad things to try to show some sort of good things that are happening. So that's what you're seeing. And then you have people like myself and some other people that I hang out with on Tag Team Crypto on Tuesday nights with Viva La Coin and Malibu and Chronic. And we talk about the true things. It's like the same I do on my channel, the true things you should be paying attention to, and what's important in macroeconomics. And so, being said, we have inflation again, I don't think it's going to still have some weight because we're still sitting in the sevens. We need to get down to 4. And so until the quicker that comes down to 4 or 3, you're going to finally get the point to where the Fed will pivot. Well, not really pivot, but they'll hold rates at that point. So I can see a couple more 50-point basis moves until it comes down to where they want it. I would think maybe even 2 more, and then potentially hit a 225s or something after that. But we're going to have to really see how this does play out. Again, inflation where it counts is the problem, is in people's food and basic living expenses is where the inflation is at. It's not hard to understand that, but nonetheless, this is where we are. So again, we're playing this tight range. Is the non-farms going to be what pulls us out of here? Who knows? We do start having banks rolling in, I believe, next week. Bank earnings, and those are going to provide a lot of exposure to what's really going on. Now, a couple of CEOs have already come out and talked about different things, so they know things are going to get bad. So are they going to actually expose something on earnings? This is the question. So we are watching banks very closely and what's going to happen. And then you're going to get big tech followed right by the banks. So it's typically Tesla was leading off last year, and Netflix. We'll see if that's the same this year. They change it every year. It's not always the same schedule. Once I kind of have a schedule of the earnings, it's kind of the same throughout the year. Typically, you have 2 big techs that were kind of leading it off right after the banks, and then the rest of the big techs came after. So it might be the same setup this year. We have to see, but I'll get more into that in the weekly update for next week. But nonetheless, non-farms, that's what we're watching. So again, technical levels, the 3,800 is key to watch. 3,900 is key to watch. I really don't think we're going to break this. I really think we're just going to pull this junk into next week when we start getting bank earnings is what's going to happen, unless something is disclosed or we finally get this black swan. I don't think we're really going to be breaking out of here. I don't think there's going to be any significant news to break us out of here. I'm not saying there can't be. There can be. There very well can be. But unless that happens, I think the market's waiting for the banks. And so in that case, I think we're going to float between the 3,800 and 3,900. The dollar, again, consolidating 104. Looking at it for a big move to the upside on this thing coming very shortly. And I think that might be during bank earnings. Might be in inflation. We might actually rip up. Who knows? Maybe this will break down. If bulls definitely want this thing to break below 102, or bears, you want this thing to stay above. Hopefully break back over 105 and start carrying back up to a newer high. Tesla, I'm not going to go over Bitcoin. Bitcoin's been pretty flat until Bitcoin really changes. I'm not going to really go over Bitcoin right now. Tesla is showing some good signs of consolidation down here. This 108 mark. We'll see if this continues to hold again, if the market turns over. And I think a big thing too is right now, again, something I talked about is value in financials are what's holding up the market. Tech has been cratering like really bad. If we get bad bank earnings, that's going to be what it's going to take to start causing a sell-off. How bad, who knows, right? You still need a black swan. This is not going to be the black swan event, but you'll get some pretty big selling. You'll get some pretty big red days if that's the case. It's continued nasty bullish bear cycle, or the bear cycle that we live, where you get these bullish pops and these massive aggressive moves down. So we'll see what happens there. But Tesla, I do really like Tesla. They did come out with talked about a patent today for boats and planes. So that was quite interesting. So I'm looking at that. I am investing as much as I can in Tesla at this point. I still think it's one of the best companies out there, and the fact that they're branching out to planes and boats is cool, in my opinion. And again, they're an energy company. They're not just a car company. So I want to see what happens there, and it's really interesting to see. So I want to be a part of that, in my opinion. So again, not financial advice, but and so at these levels, I'll be DCAing for me. Even it does take, and something I've talked about, if we're going to take a major hit and we're going to go down to 3K, the 3K mark on SPX, because that's what Goldman Sachs is like predicting. But we won't. It's not to say we're going to hit it. The predictions are always way out there, but nonetheless, if we do hit that, the meat of the move is going to come from financials and value. That's where all of the meat is right now. You have to understand that in that tech has already been battered really bad. Yes, tech can still fall, but you're going to get a bigger move out of value and a bigger move out of financials. That's going to bring the market down when that does happen. So that's kind of what I'm watching there. You're going to want to watch Tesla as long as it can hold. Again, this 108, 104. I think we're good for a while. Hopefully this thing starts consolidating around here until hopefully we get some good news to start pushing back up. Again, crater move coming at some point. I believe it's not saying it cannot happen as well, but we have to see. Apple still managing to barely hold on to the 124. Again, chips and news. China also came out with news today as well about chips, in that that they're not going to be creating as much chips, so that will be a plus for our side of the house in chips. So that could be something other good investment there as well. So just keep that in mind. But Apple again still beating pretty bad. We're gonna have to see how if this thing does turn around. Again, these are the essentially the big hitters. Tesla and Apple have been the big hitters for tech for a long time, and now they've just been battered and beaten in a bad spot right now. BA monster move today. Again, yeah, if you want the market to stay up, you definitely don't want these things turning over, and that's what I've been talking about. They've gone about 3 months, just way overextended without any back testing. When this thing comes down, it's going to be nasty and fast. So again, BA, you want it to come back down and retest the 196 and hopefully hold and not break below that and start selling. Is my cause of concern there, but it's good to see it finally break over the 200 there and see if it will hold by tomorrow. We'll see how the market digests essentially the report pretty much to the meeting notes. So the banks, JP Morgan, again, holding this range of 137 to 130, just like the market. I think everything is kind of waiting on bank earnings to kind of see what's true. I think non-farms could be that catalyst that breaks us either way temporarily until we get earnings. And then that could lead more if it's bad unemployment numbers, maybe we start selling and breaks us below, and then we get bad earnings. So there's just more fuel to the fire. Could be a possibility. I think more highly likely than the other way, in my opinion. But again, we'll see. Anything is possible, and you have to come in with that mentality each and every day that anything is possible. Things can go back to all-time highs, and things can go to zero overnight. Yes, it's possible. So with that being said, if you made it this far, I do appreciate you. A lot of info in this video. So hopefully it helps you, helps me. And then we put another one in the books, and we go to day 3 of 2023 in the market. So I'll see you guys on the field.